All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this workshop on dimensional frequency fences and soul prisons. This has been a workshop in the works for a really, really long time, and the architecture of this whole download came in so clearly after our first part of the same title workshop inside of ESA. I just knew I had to share this with every person for free online, even though it's a little bit scary to share these teachings. Inside of ESA, we're on a Zoom call, it's not public. The space allows me to just express myself in a much more easeful way. I feel safer. And a big part of this is this year really leaning into the galactic emerald green light from God to be seen, to be visible, to lead. And God is asking for me to go forth. And so here we are. We're going to talk about some things that are quite esoteric. It's going to be kind of heat because I'm going to be blasting through all these glass ceilings that many of these things have taken them thousands and thousands of years to create, right? The whole point of this false matrix soul prison system is to capture people inside of it so that they can't ascend out of it. And so here I am getting ready to blast through all of them. And I really do feel like this is going to be a prison break for a lot of you. I'm here for it. I'm so excited. My intention today is to absolutely create a portal of opportunity for you to recognize where your energy may be stuck in one of these dimensional locks and how you can just absolutely free yourself and resolve any confusion you might have around your path, around associations, around people jumping from New Age to Christianity, and all these things that happen. And hopefully by the end of this call, you feel very clear about all of these things that we have in the world, and you can really discern with a clear consciousness and clear understanding, and really understand what you're aligning to when you surrender yourself onto a path to God eternally. When we say we're on a mission, who is this mission from? Who do we work for, right? Where is that energy streaming in from? And the other thing that I want to say is just that there are some ascension teachings out there that are very cerebral, very mental. And the way that I operate, the way that I teach is through transmission, through experience. So we're going to talk about these different dimensional frequency bands, but we're really going to experience them and feel them, because I believe that ascension doesn't have to be this crazy cerebral mental thing. The reason why sometimes in certain spiritual communities there is so much fancy spiritual lingo, fancy spiritual understanding, and yet when you feel, there's a lot of fracture, a lot of conflict, a lot of paranoia and fear. And so this tells us that information does not equal embodiment. Information does not equal actual ascension of our biology. And so this is a way that I work, is through direct experience. I have basically walked through this ascension process of my consciousness. I literally, as I was reflecting on this, have spent time in all of these dimensional frequency bands. And as I've spent time in these places, at first it would feel so novel, like I'm transcending and I'm evolving. And at some point, it would just feel like it was time to move on. And over the last 10 years, I've just continually been walking this journey until I broke through to the other side. The way that this happened for me was through my first pregnancy with my daughter, Kara, who first came to me as this beautiful angel. And she basically telepathically shared, so many teachings about the light body, about the womb, Stargate, and all of these things. And she told me that she was my ascension teacher all the time I was pregnant with her. And then after she was born, she only lived for 9 days. She actually had a heart defect that made her heart too big. But after she transitioned in 2020, she brought me back to the eternal source creational world. And I spent 3 days with her in the heart of God and experienced inside of my body what that felt like. And that was what broke me through all of the dimensional frequency bands. It wasn't through studying specific dimensions and breathing techniques. It was really through the soul and the body already being blueprinted to experience certain things and then just being inoculated with that energy. So today, that's what we're going to be doing. It's going to be an experiential process. We have to understand how the New Age really hooks us with what I call New Age Luciferianism, which is this seductive information, right? Seductive 12D, whatever else, angles, shapes, sacred geometry. And at the end of the day, it doesn't do us any good if we can't actually embody it. And so I hope that you will enjoy this class because normally, these energy transmissions I do inside of the Airstar Academy for my comfort levels, really. Because also, another big reason why people are reluctant to fully stream these energies is because these energies are so highly persecuted. When we get into talking about, these frequency bands and how religion plays into it, the whole point of this architecture is to block people from connecting to the eternal realm, which locks us into this finite reality. And the reason why they want to do that is so that they can continuously siphon and harvest our energy because these beings have severed and separated from source. They're no longer receiving nourishment from God and they've fallen from that state. And so they're trying to trap us into this finite reality so that we can be, parasite food, essentially. And this is a complicated structure, which is why it's been so hard to navigate through it. But once we explain all the layers, you're going to be like, wow, that's actually so easy to see once you see it, once you feel it, once you kind of understand where the lies are, where the distortions are, where the traps are, then it's going to be really easy to see beyond it. And then from that place, what we're really wanting to get towards is, again, that embodiment piece, that feeling of these true eternal Christ energies actually flowing through our body. This is when we're going to bump into those persecution traumas. I was in bed last night. I had to listen to my own persecution clearing like 2 times in a row. I was in bed with my son for like 2.5, 3 hours. I was terrified for this call today because, again, this is a public call on YouTube. And I am going to be working with these energies that have been targeted for a really, really, really long time. And I just hope that I'm bringing this up because I'm really this messenger to say that it is safe now. It is safe for us to break through and come into these highest levels of ourself at this time. This is why this video is coming to you at this time. This is why God has instructed me to share this information with you at this time specifically. And so I think that our mind is going to be nourished by the information, but our soul is going to really feel like it's a homecoming. It is a celebration. It's this cosmic emerald green light. What happens after this point is, we're going to be cultivating this beyond finite reality. The eternal Christ frequency is going to begin to able to flow through the body, and that is already going to re-architect our whole entire system and change everything about us. It's going to change our personality and how we respond and how we communicate and how we show up, how we shine up, how we shine our light. Previously we might be afraid. Even myself, I'm moving through this really big process of on regularly on social media, on the public internet. I really try to dim this frequency of the presence of Christ, of love, true love, eternal love. I try to do that because I'm trying to hide behind all this new age stuff. I'm trying to hide behind it so that I can't be seen. And then behind the scenes, for my clients and inside of my academy, I'm delivering the true frequencies. And at this time, I'm going through this process of just breaking through that barrier and fully being myself in the space. And I think that that is such a beautiful thing. Again, it's just a message to all of you that it is that time. It's safe for us to do that now. And on that note, I think let's just get on with it. So I'm gonna bring this like this. Okay. So the 15th dimensional universal time matrix architecture, it is something that has been shared by various other teachers. And, the person that really helped me fully remember this was Lisa Renee. However, I have already been piecing this together. In my awakening process, I often connect it to other dimensional bands of myself. So you have to understand that we are all God, right? We're all source, we're all unified, and we all have a physical body. That means that every single one of us have aspects of ourselves in other stations of the dimensional realities. If you are an organic being, that's just the reality. So every single being has access to the experience of being an avatar, essentially. An avatar is a source, a spark of God, a piece of the universal consciousness in a body, and being able to be conscious of it, right? And so the 15D universal time matrix architecture is essentially a way of perceiving these layers. And of course, there's other ways. It's kind of like our bodies. We have the regular chakra system, we have the three dantians, we have the meridian system. And it's not that if one exists, it means that another doesn't. It's just they're all different ways of perceiving the layers of the reality. So in this way of perceiving, we're looking at the densities of our souls frequency bands and our light body, essentially. Okay, so the 15 dimensions are broken down into 5 unique layers and levels. So how I used to experience this was, I had my physical body, but then I would feel that there was a version of me that had my shamanic skills that connected into, the earth energies. I would feel my Mongolian shaman ancestors. It was a part of me that was very connected to the dream realm, the energy realms. I would see this version of myself in that energy. And then I would see another version of myself in more the star energies, the galactic. I would meet with my Andromedan geneticist side and my Pleiadian aspects who had memories, right? I'm drawing knowledge from those realms. I'm not just saying, oh, I think I'm from that place, but it's to the point where I'm remembering what I remembered when I was in those incarnations. For example, understanding light fields and genetics and being able to heal architectures and work with the plasma quantum realms, understanding how DNA architects matter and allows consciousness to form into matter. All of this knowledge is from this what I connected to as my Andromedan aspect. So that was this other part of me. And now I want to connect with, kind of this avatar energy, which is really the avatars that I really connect with are Kuan Yin, Babaji, and then later on really started connecting with Jesus. But these are the parts of us that experience that like true Christed, illuminated self that remembers ourself as God and connects with and embodies the infinite benevolence and peace and unconditional love of God. And so, I was connecting with these layers of myself. And then I saw this diagram online, which was like, oh, okay, so I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one seeing this. This is something that is real. And so just shout out to Lisa Renee for helping me confirm and bring that piece in. But the rest of the information that I'm going to share with you is from my personal experience and just my assessment of me experiencing these different frequency bands, being familiar with these different frequency bands, and having that context as I move through my life and perceive the reality. I'm perceiving the reality through that lens. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to share here. Okay, yeah. So the different dimensional frequency bands also correspond with our identities, our light bodies, right? So the first layer, all 5 of the dimensions have, all 5 what I call frequency bands. It's a band because they're a cluster of frequencies that create a reality, create a dimensional reality that is coherent and recognizable as a unit, if that makes sense. So for example, the first three dimensions are the physical body. And so you see the physical body as its own layer, and you would organize those three dimensions into the physical body, or this is your human personality, is your third dimensional personality. And inside of the Earthstar Academy curriculum, we go into studying these layers of ourselves so we can actually bring alignment into them. Because when people are growing up inside of the false matrix, when they're told that there's no such thing as a soul and the third dimension is the only thing that there is, we don't remember our soul when we are growing up. And so what that means is that our personality, our third dimensional personality, we can begin to have malformations. So thinking about how as your physical body is growing, you're supposed to have the simultaneous experience of your soul incarnating. And the soul incarnating is the same experience as, this universal consciousness or this universal network of photons, whatever you want to call it, energy. I call it this tree of life, okay? So if it's like this tree of life, every single new baby is like a new little branch. We're an extension of that universal web of creation, of physicality, of matter. And so when our cells are dividing, when our mother becomes pregnant, this is when that universal tree of life is developing. So this is when our soul is meant to be incarnating. Through every division of the cell, more of our soul is able to incarnate into the flesh. So obviously, we live in a society where the education system is not built with that understanding, like at all. So for the majority of human beings, and of course, that's part of the frequency fence, right? The first three dimensions in this hue one means harmonic universe one. My word for that, I know, because sometimes there's so many words and it's like, what does it actually mean? So for me, I use the word frequency band because you can understand that. Consciousness bandwidth, a frequency band of consciousness. You can kind of understand that a little better. So this is the physical reality, the first bandwidth. And a lot of the false matrix, when people think of the matrix, right, most of the time they're talking about this third dimensional frequency fence where they're telling us, if you see imaginary friends, that's just your imagination. There's no such thing as fairies and unicorns and, even magic, or you can't talk to trees. There's no telepathy. There's only the third dimension and what science can explain. A big part of this then is like if there's nothing beyond the third dimension and everything is just, for example, with the theories of evolution with Darwin, is kind of saying that everything is random, right? That things are happening and over billions of years, random stars collided and somehow we ended up as humans. That's kind of that's the third dimensional frequency fence explanation of how humans came to be. And you can see how that understanding is void of God. And that's the whole point. The whole point of this prison system is to block humans from actually remembering the highest vibrational aspects, the highest realities, the highest destiny, the highest template blueprint of what a human is. And that is to say that we are an extension of God. We are all this branch of the universal tree of life. We're all this living, united aspect of creation, of God. And so every layer of these dimensional fences is intentionally distorting our understanding of God and our inner connection to God. And the thing is that it's very, very hard to do this because human beings are designed, right? We're literally made to be a house of God. And there are systems in our body, our meridians, our chakras, our chemical balance, our minerals, our consciousness, our nervous system, literally everything is made to experience God. And so for them to actually be able to block us from having that experience, this is why they've had to put so much effort. Like you look at the third dimension and you see so much warfare, the chemicals, the microplastics, the jabs, the education system, the medical system, right? It's like they have had to put in so much effort in the third dimensional frequency fence to actually disable humans from this very innate capacity to experience our divinity, right? And so, how we identify this inside of ourselves is really connecting with our body. Part of the third dimensional frequency fence is thinking that the body is just a pile of matter, a pile of flesh, that you can do whatever you want to it, right? That you can change it in whatever you want. Um, so things that you're going to hear me talk about are the satanic control system, the satanic inversions, and the Luciferian control system and the Luciferian distortions. The satanic distortions has to do with inverting and removing our sense of divinity. And actually, it mocks our sanctity. It hates anything that is holy. It will take the most sacred parts of us and completely degrade it, right? And usually this has to do with our biology, has to do with our matter, because, even in religion, they talk about how, oh, the body is made of sin, and we blame the body for all these things. In the third dimension, we think, oh, the body is just a bunch of flesh. But when we are transcended through that prison, that consciousness prison, and we bring back in the true Christ architecture, we remember that our bodies are so holy, that our bodies are these temples, these houses of God, and these body carry such immense intelligence and wisdom that was designed to literally be an oracle, be a vessel for the most holy messages and information and frequencies. Okay? And okay, so then we look at ourselves and our relationship with our own body and how we treat our body and how we think about our body. Are we like, oh, it's kind of, I need to lose weight, or I'm not pretty, I want to change my body in some way. Or it's, sometimes in the third dimension, people use their body, use their beauty to manipulate the reality, to manipulate the opposite gender, to acquire power. And all of these things are ways that we are tricked out of having a right relationship with our physicality. So I say that all infrastructure that is built on this level of consciousness is part of the frequency fence. So the medical system, the education system, I mean, like everything, right? Like everything that is built on this false narrative that there is no reality beyond the physical, that there's no God, that there's no soul, those are just absolute lies. It's just not truth, is absolute falsities. But unfortunately, so much of our reality is built on those falsehoods, which means that basically everything that is a part of that infrastructure is part of the third dimensional frequency fence soul prison. And now that's really easy to identify. It's really easy to understand because I think that if you tune into your body and listen to your heart, if I say the question, do you feel that your body is a miracle? Do you feel that your life is a miracle? Do you feel that to be able to feel love, to be able to look at these beautiful flowers, to be able to experience, like every human being has experienced that profoundness of being in touch with the vibration of holiness, right? Very few humans on earth have never had an experience like that, right? And so, once you put it like that, you're like, well, I guess this whole system is built to make us question our own direct experience and to believe something that is outside of our own direct experience. And then we see that that's actually one of the biggest ways that this black magic works, is that it will get us to give away our power, give away our own perception, and to rely on an external source for information. So we basically are trained from a young age to not trust our own body, right? Our true physicality, our intuition, our true relationship with this world, and we defer that responsibility to someone outside of ourselves, that's, usually parents that are programmed, and doctors and teachers and scientists, right? Trust the science, things like that. That kind of gaslighting, we saw it so clearly on the world stage in the recent years. This is all part of the physical dimensional frequency fence soul prison. Now, most of the people watching this video, we have transcended this, okay? But I'm just articulating all of this so you can have this understanding. You can hear the words that I'm using. You can see how I'm explaining it. And, if you want to, you could send this video to people that you feel could understand it, even though, don't send it to people that you don't feel would appreciate me, because I don't really want to be put in a harm's way in that way. But I guess I'm going to have to get used to it, because, I'm here to explain things. So I'm just getting used to that. Okay, so let's now move on to the next dimension and frequency band here. Okay, so you started following your feelings, right? You're like, I'm depressed. I feel like there's something wrong with this world. I feel like I actually do believe that there is something beyond just the physical. And so this inquiry, this inquisitiveness, this curiosity actually helped you move out of that third dimensional frequency band, because your soul has a natural inclination to actually ascend. Again, because it's unnatural. We're actually being oppressed, right? Remembering that your body, human bodies are naturally divine. This is something that, in the third dimension, in the inside of the frequency fences, they say, oh, enlightenment is so hard. You're going to have to go and climb some mountains and spend 30 years with some lama, and then maybe you'll burn off enough karma and possibly become enlightened. And that's part of the lies. Because what I believe is that human bodies are made to experience God, to be a house of God, to experience absolute divine union. And when anytime the soul just has kind of any of that little momentum, like this curiosity, asking a question, the soul just opens and moves into that state. So it's actually not, rocket science, which is a good thing. This is a really good thing. The unfortunate thing is that the warfare has been so strong that a lot of people have so much mental programming within those frequency fences that they've even lost that desire to have curiosity. And I think that that's just going to be like a critical mass thing. I think that, as more and more people wake up and open to these higher understandings, at some point, they're just going to follow the masses, right? When the masses do wake up, those people will as well. And I think that's totally fine. Okay, so now we find the world of plant medicine and emotional healing, and even yoga, dream interpretation, natural health, right? This is like a frequency band of consciousness. We've now left the third dimensional frequency fence, and every time we transcend a frequency fence, we actually get this rush. We feel like we have come home. We feel like we've returned a part of ourselves, right? And that's true, because this dimensional field is also the soul body. So we've now come into attunement of the fact that there is a soul, is a spirit, is something that we're interacting with, that is like this living spirit inside of us. And the way that we're encountering this is, through maybe plant medicine, shamanism, herbalism, even a lot of witch like practices, very earth shamanism is what I would call it, right? And there are people that can be stuck here forever, right? They're just in this, there are networks, there are entire people and businesses and operations that are existing inside of this frequency band that doesn't go beyond it. So this is why when we are in these frequency bands, we don't really hear people talking about God that much, right? Because we're interacting with only the realm of the soul, only the realm of the spirit. So that includes like plant medicine souls and spirits. That includes the soul and spirit of the earth, but it not yet connects with the higher dimensions of our own spirit. And so in these realms, you'll very rarely hear people talk about God. And again, what's included in this is also these like trauma healing groups, and things like this, like entire communities and businesses that are built around this, and entire networks and groups of people that are kind of held in the stasis field. Okay. At certain point, you step into the next, because for a lot of star seeds, you begin to feel bored. If you're going, oh, festivals is also in here, right? Because you've exited the 3D. I also want to say like a lot of social justice stuff is also in there, because it kind of does transcend the 3D. Like you're kind of following higher purpose. You're asking questions about human nature and living in virtue, right? And so even though we've not transcended through that fence, we're beginning to ask those questions about like our soul's purpose and wanting to live from a place of purpose. But again, people can really just stay here and find their friends and, really just stay in this frequency band until a soul feels bored. A soul is like, wait, I think there's more. I'm starting to feel not satiated by this. And oftentimes people then move into the oversoul, the monadic body. This is where a lot of the starseed, I call this the galactic realm. So this is the starseed stuff, the ETs, the galactic consciousness, the channeling, a lot of, even human design and gene keys. But I guess, sometimes like in gene keys, we do talk about God, but it isn't like a loud signal. Is it really fully a focus? We're still trying to figure out who we are. The false distortions in this realm has to do with like the false twin flame stuff, galactic federation, plating, channelings. Like anytime there's like this very galactic activating energy, but it's lacking holiness, lacking sanctity. We're not really praying. We're not in reverence of God. When we do pray, we're praying to all sorts of random things and beings and praying to everything but God. I think a lot of deities are in here, but also the next frequency band as well. Now, I want to say that within all of these, and you're going to hear me repeat this, within all of these frequency bands, there are organic aspects to them. Okay, because there are organic layers of our own soul that is inside of these realms, which is why I also don't believe in like, okay, like, when they say, oh, plant medicines are all bad and astrology is all bad and the new age is all bad and the starseed stuff is all, demons or whatever. Like that just is, not true, because these are dimensional aspects of ourselves. So it's about having it all in right relationship, which we're going to get to in a second. This is a frequency band. I think a lot of the secret space program stuff ties into here. I think that this is one of the most intense layers. This is one of the most intense layers because this is where there is so much intentional booby traps, right? Because once you've gone to this space, you're almost free. You're almost on the other side. So they really want to capture as many starseeds, as many new agers, as many light workers as possible, because light workers, we're basically useless if you're trapped here. And what I mean by that is at this level, which by the way, in every dimensional shift, you are experiencing a literal shift of consciousness, right? You are experiencing these dimensional bands of energy flow into your body, which is why it's such an activating experience. Even if you do step into a third frequency band, some sort of like starseed group where they're doing activations, you will experience that activation. You will experience those energies flow through your body, which is why it's so hard to discern because you're like, well, I had that experience and it really did feel good. It felt like a homecoming. Okay. And the reason for that is that you did have a homecoming into this dimensional frequency band where you were locked away from it before. But there is so much booby trap that goes into this realm from channeled information and so much misinformation. Brad says the Galactic Federation of Worlds is not false, it's a real organization. And the thing is like absolutely there are real organizations and there's just about 5 billion counterfeits. And the way that you can discern is through actually initiating yourself into the true highest eternal Christ consciousness level and then coming back and perceiving the reality. Leah in our community says that she calls it seeing the God code activated. Okay, and I'm going to go into the distortions around God in this next level, but I just want to make sure that I'm finished with this layer here. Okay, yeah. So the way that the hooks and binds and traps come in is when we don't have understanding of these layers. And so then we don't know that we actually have to work and heal and correct and re-architect and bring our soul into them intentionally. So say we have a human part, right? Can somebody let me know if you can see my mouse? Let me know if you can see my mouse. But say somebody grew up with a lot of trauma and their parents didn't give them enough attention. And when they came home and they had like 100% on their science test, they tried to show their mom and their mom was too busy. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And so this kid grows up just wanting to feel seen, wanting to start us as no, thank you. Okay, thank you guys so much for letting me know that. So I'm talking about D123 on the bottom, the physical level, the human self. Okay. So this kid grows up feeling unimportant, unseen, and there's a deep human desire to be appreciated. And this is a human need. This is such an organic, innocent, natural thing. But when it's unconscious, it becomes part of our shadow. This is why we have to do shadow work, right? Dealing with our human self. So, say this person who is genetically coded to be a starseed, who can easily access these higher dimensionalities, but does not know that it needs to work on its human self. And so it grows up, it doesn't even know that it has these woundings of not being seen, not feeling important, not feeling valued by her mom, by his or her mom and dad. And now he, grows up and goes into the spiritual community, right? Has this whole awakening. He has no understanding of these layers of the soul. So he's experiencing these massive, what he feels are like light body activations. And then all of a sudden, these beings, Pleiadian, Syrian, are like, you're so important. You're going to be the next Jesus, right? And finally, he's not even understanding that there is a part of his earth self that has needed to feel important since he was a child. But he doesn't even know that that part of him is there. So what he experiences inside of his body is relief, okay, is joy, excitement, and is finally an opportunity to be important. And so, okay, this was just a illustration of how these layers and levels, they're not unique in and of themselves, right? We're a unified, it's almost like the Russian dolls. These are just the layers of ourself. And so when we have this understanding, we know that we can be manipulated in these higher dimensional realms through the holes that we have in these lower dimensional aspects of ourself, which is why in the Earth Star Academy, we focus an entire foundations level, 260 modules on healing and rehabilitating the Earth self, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. And it's 4 whole courses until we enter into the other energies, because I just don't believe that it is safe. I know that in New Age, there's a lot of classes that teach people how to, activate your channeling and do all this stuff. And I just don't believe that it is safe to do that until we really take care of the foundations and heal our earth self. Because this is the reason why almost everyone is getting trapped in this third harmonic frequency band. Okay, so Okay, let's just move forward for now. So the next layer of this is also really big. I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it is all really, really big. So um, this is the false Christ frequencies. When we talk about religion, Christianity, now I'll just, you know, describe this first before I go into it. Okay. So, false Christ frequencies are basically religions that are either male or female dominant, and it's really both. Okay, I know that the dominant religion wounding we have is with Christianity and with these other religions that are very male God dominant, but is there are other religions that are also female dominant and is the same thing. And I'll tell you why in a second. Any religion where God is one half of the creation, it's part of the false Christ frequency band. This is where you get the guru messiah. Okay, these are people that are highly templated, right? Um, they are the ones that are being contacted by these fallen beings who have not done the healing work, who've not done the ego training, who have not done the rehabilitation, the incarnation in the lower densities of their human self, and they're immediately activating into the fourth frequency band. And because the energy is flowing through them and there are beings that are supporting that, people are experiencing real things, right? If they didn't have any power or they weren't saying anything that was resonant, nobody would fall for it. So in order for people to be, a false Christ or whatever, they have to have some level of ability to accrete energies that resonate or impress people. And so this is how they are accreting energies from that dimensional band. They are connecting to themselves on that level. They are flowing that energy in. Usually it's, they can only pretend though, because they can't be their authentic self. They have to dress up as an image of an avatar that has lived in the past, right? Sometimes people say, "Oh, Z, you're like, Kuan Yin or whatever." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm Z. I'm Asian. I am on a path of ascension, just like she was, and I've discovered that she might actually be one of my ancestors, but I'm not her. I'm me. I'm Z. I'm Xiangming, and I'm a unique expression of avatar consciousness, just like we all are. But the only way that we can be a unique expression is we're actually pulling that frequency and accreting it through our dimensional experiences organically, authentically, through our human self. If there is no human self there, they will have to make one up. And so this is why they'll have to dress up as someone that they've seen before, like on TV or whatever. And, I just need you guys to know that this is not like judgment or anything. It's just scientific understanding of what is happening. Every human being is a human and everyone deserves compassion and love. And these prison bans are very well set up, and we have to have compassion for those people that just get tricked, usually by, again, that example of the inner child that needs to be seen, needs to be validated, needs to feel importance, which are all human needs that humans have. So it's, nothing that we need to be vindictive about or judgment about, but it is important for us to understand how it works so that we can have this perspective, and also to really pray for those people because they are trapped, right? We're here to emancipate everyone, even the human beings that are completely taken over. I have gone into some crazy spaces where I've had to hold space and love for even people that have done just absolutely horrendous things. And it is such an important initiation because the true Christ frequency it truly redeems. Like, this is the amazing thing, is that once we go into the next realm, we'll be able to see that frequency in things. Okay, I'll go to it in a second. Let me just finish what I'm saying here because I'm going to keep blowing your minds here, okay? So I said the thing about the Guru Messiah complexes, which we all have that ability to be a vehicle for God, to be a messenger for God. And when it's not authentic, it comes through as an acting. Now, in a lot of the law of attraction teachings, I say that it is kind of a slightly watered down, distorted thing because it says, you are the creator of your reality. You can create whatever you want. And who is you, right? You is, is it your human self? Is it your traumatized self? Is it the part of you that, is greedy? Is it like, who is the you? Is it you, your soul? Is it your soul that is connected to God? And if we're not specific, then that's when we can really get into New Age Luciferianism. And we are having this distorted understanding of God, where they say, for example, source. So I personally have a really hard time using the word source. And I want you to feel the energy, okay? Just because you use the word source doesn't mean that you're distorted. But if you have a trauma from using the word God, there's something there that we need to explore. So when there are certain people that say, that God is not conscious, that God is just energy, that God is just all this energy in the universe. And this is what I call New Age Luciferianism, because this is also the program that says, oh, evil is part of God and pedophiles is part of God. So because everything is God, whatever, anything happens. You can quickly see how this is a very subtle level of Luciferianism, which is basically Lucifer, false light. Lucifer means light. So Luciferianism is false light, right? This is all about the false God overlays. So when we say source energy is God, it's void of like holiness, sanctity. And that experience of holiness is what activates our light body and our DNA to actually accrete those energies. So when you are in that frequency fence, God is a mental concept that is source energy, that is energy everywhere. And it's not a embodied experience that people have. Okay. Brad said the word God can imply the biblical interpretation that humans are born in sin. And again, these are mental ideas of God. And what we want is for us all to have a literal physical experience of God. And the only way that we can do that is by transcending these frequency fences. And if you are not having that experience, or you're not just in awe when you connect to this reality, when you connect to true God, right? And you are just brought to a state of peace and true love where you can have forgiveness and have compassion and have infinite resource of peace and passion to do good and benevolence in the world, right? That is what we're trying to activate as an experience inside of our body. So everything that I'm sharing with you, it's a lot of information, and I hope that you are feeling in your body where the subtle distortions are when we say source is just energy, when we say God is everything, and so everything that's evil, like these are distortions. God is not evil. And I don't want to get into that whole debate right now because this is about an experience. So now we're going to I'm going to open through to the next thing, and then we're going to work backwards again. So the final frequency band in the physical reality, right, in the physicalized reality, is the fifth band, which is true Christ consciousness. True Christ consciousness is the realm where Holy Mother, Holy Father, the feminine and masculine aspects of creation, creator, are in union. That's the Godhead. And so this is actually the bridge between the finite and the infinite realities. This is the first incarnation of Holy Mother and Holy Father as individuated forces. This is the density when you can actually experience them as unique individuated experiences, because beyond that, in the eternal realm, they're just one thing. Okay. So this is why this is the bridge into that other world. And this is the Godhead of this physicalized system where we can connect with Holy Mother and Holy Father as the individuated architecture holders, logos holders of this realm. Okay, so now when you begin to connect in with that energy, okay, you realize that, okay, and this is why I can read the Bible, because people are like, I don't know how you're reading the Bible. Um, it's so distorted. And the reason is because I've transcended the frequency fence, and now I can find what is the original signal. Because, for example, in the Bible, when they say the Lord, I'm pretty sure in the original text, when we say Lord, it's kind of a masculine thing, but in the original text, I'm pretty sure the word for the Lord was the I am. Right? So the I am is this eternal frequency that is not feminine or masculine. And so there's been all of these edits of the Bible that has, removed these things. But if you have activated this true Christ consciousness, then you absolutely can read the Bible and find the gold bits where you can feel the truth come through that holy book. And I think that that's just part of what I'm doing or tasked to do at this time. And it's very easy to then see also where the false Christ frequencies and the overlays are being placed into it to, again, create that block. Because here's the thing is that, again, human beings are so naturally um, divine that we need to have religion. We need to have spirituality. And this is why when, Christ came and brought through, like, even back then, people were being stoned to death and he was crucified, right? People were being murdered for thousands of years for remembering these true teachings of Christ that they basically try to kind of distort and take out of the Bible, but they were using the Bible to create this frequency fence to capture humans. And so this is why, a lot of star seeds jump from the star seed stuff to the Christian stuff, because they realize that the star seed stuff, a lot of it is missing the God component, the true God component. And they are searching for that Christ energy. And you can find it in Christianity. That's why so many people, like, you can't just trick 6 billion or 1 billion people into being Christian without something being there, right? So there is true Christ energies and teachings in Christianity, absolutely, about benevolence, kindness, the true nature of God. The God in the Old Testament and the New Testament, I believe, are absolutely different. And people used to get stoned to death for saying that 2,000 years ago. But the thing is that our body is always seeking for this experience of true, eternal accretion. Accretion being expression, transmission, a flow of energy through our bodies, because that is our home. And so at some point when this activation happens, the starseed realizes that the Christ energy is not existent in a lot of the starseed New Age stuff. And then they do experience that in Christianity. And so they jump to Christianity, right? But unfortunately, this still captures those star seeds. They're not able to fully do their full mission, because we are here to rehabilitate. And God has placed gifts inside of our bodies that only a lot of the star seeds can understand. And we have sight. God has given us sight to understand the architecture of this creation, to help God rehabilitate the light body of this reality. And so when starseeds jump from one frequency band to the next, the soul prisons are really working good. Really working good. Okay, so what is beyond this, and what is the true God? So the true God to me is the eternal, omniversal God that is the place where Holy Mother, Holy Father exists eternally in union. It is not a mental concept so much as an experience that when we truly allow our body, right? Remembering that your body already knows how to experience God. It was built to experience God. It has all of the chemicals and the ley lines and the energy and the everything inside of it to experience the eternal creation. And so all you have to do is really ask your heart, ask God, beloved Mother, Father, the eternal living creation, the eternal living God, show me that peace, that benevolence, show me your true nature, right? And this is the place where when our consciousness comes into contact with this frequency, which, for me, sometimes I forget, because for me, this was a really intense experience that I've had, right? To um, have this friendship with this beautiful soul that taught me so much about true love and ascension and the light body and all of that. And then to have her be born into my arms, she was my soul's best friend, and then to watch her leave, to watch her die, and then to have her literally pull my consciousness and my soul back to this eternal place where everything was and nothing came yet, nothing was manifest. This was a very intense activation that prepared me for my work. That's why it was called an initiation. And so for me, this is my gift to you, is that this is a frequency and experience of absolute peace, absolute love, absolute wholeness, absolute benevolence. And peace is one of the greatest signatures of true God, right? Where it's not just like spiritual experience, where it's not just something that is exciting or it stimulates our inner child or our ego in some way. It's just such a beautiful, expansive peace, eternal peace, presence. And when we come into communion and contact with that frequency, that is when we can actually look back down on all of these layers and levels and put everything back in its right place. Because, like I said, this is the architecture of this creation. God created this creation, and there's so much profound beauty, profound wisdom, and knowledge embedded in all of these layers and levels of ourself. But when those the only way that they become a soul prison or a frequency fence is when we are locked in that layer and can't see things from that eternal place, where our consciousness has not reconnected with the eternal, and we're still operating in these finite activities and ways of associating with things. So, for example, once we have communed with this eternal peace consciousness, right, we see that everything is being created by this one source. And the source has qualities, it has architectures. And then we can see that there are forces that are actually, I call them antichrist. That these forces are actually, they've fallen to an extent where they are aggressively against the true qualities of God, and they're trying to deceive humans on the true nature of God. And I'm not going to go into why this happened, which I do in the Earthstar Academy curriculum, but essentially, even universal bodies go through what I call architectures for learning. And we've been going through this absolute free will architecture, but we're actually moving beyond that. Okay. And so, so through that experiment, certain factions, we had this experience of absolute separation, being severed, being completely severed from source. And when energies, beings, consciousness becomes severed from our true eternal consciousness, eternal union, it begins to degrade and disintegrate and fall into more and more levels of demonic experiences. Okay. And so now we have these forces that are basically trying to take God's creation. They are trying to become God. They have grown this arrogance and they are trying to become God. Okay. So Brad, I just need you to stop with your comments because, if you're here to listen to what I have to say, please actually try to listen to where I'm coming from. The reason for that is just like I have the chat on and it's really distracting to feel that energy. Like I'm really, really sensitive. It's really distracting to feel this energy, like, oh, but this and this and this. Like, I would really rather if you are here to listen, to just listen for the reason why that it's really disruptive to me energetically. It's not that I, don't want people to have their own opinions. It's just that it's hard for me to articulate and to translate this information if that energy keeps coming in and is disrupting me. Thank you so much. Okay. So, and let's go back to my original intention, right? Because when we're so used to operating in the mind and we think the mind has to understand everything, but that's one of the things that is a deception. The only thing you need is to experience God inside of your body. So that's what I want you to focus on. Ask yourself, am I waking up in the morning and feeling absolute benevolence, peace, and grace in my body? Right? And if the answer is no, and our mind is just, going all these places, asking all these questions, but we're not actually anchored in the presence, we're not going to be, able to deeply listen. And so the reason that I'm sharing this workshop with you guys isn't to fill your head with more information. I could care less about it, but I'm just giving you this frequency understanding so that you can check in with yourself on if the God code is fully active inside of you. If identifying and bringing in the highest frequency of eternal creation is what is priority. And this is like the first part of our workshop, which we did, I think, a month or two ago, where we talked about how when we're navigating the reality, it's really, really, really easy. Here's how you figure out if something is good for you when you're navigating, right? Does this bring me closer to God? Does this bring me closer to my internal experience of union with God? That's it. This is how people can do plant medicine for 25 years, do it every weekend, but still just keep circling because they're looking for something. And what they're looking for is God. They're looking for an internal experience of being in union with the eternal. And it's not about the words we use. It's not about, arguing about different ways to describe things. It's just an experience. Is this bringing me closer to the embodied experience of being in union with eternal love, peace, and grace? And this is where we actually then identify our motivation because sometimes we're on the spiritual journey not because that's what we want, right? We're on a spiritual journey because we want to know stuff, we want to understand, we want to um, feel like we know things that other people don't. We want to feel powerful. We want to manifest a dream life. We want to manifest $1 million, right? Like people are on a spiritual journey for all sorts of reasons. And I really believe the angelic star seeds are here to move through all of that and remember that our one reason that we are on a spiritual journey is to identify and come into union with that eternal source, creation, God energy. Okay. And once we come into communion with that, it activates something inside of our body. It's an experience of our heart. It's like when that frequency kisses our heart and we come home, when that frequency kisses our heart and we come home, right? I think that for me, what I've experienced is that it's actually so simple. Like I don't do anything really to come closer to God anymore because I'm here. So I just do what my soul is being guided to do. That's why I work a lot. I'm really good to my children. I do everything I can. I help people that are around me because at some point you have moved through the dimensional frequency fences and you don't need to really do things to come back into union, because you've come back into union with this part of yourself and you're not going to leave anymore. You've come home, right? And so then, what are the things that bring us closer to God? I think, um, it's not meant to be like a hobby of its own, right? Sometimes, we're like, oh, let's take this course, let's take that course, let's do this course. Here in the Earth Star Academy, what we focus on is your soul's prophecy. So coming home to God is like the second step, right? Healing yourself is first step. And then we come home. And then after that, we're asking the question, like, why did God put me here? What is my prophecy? And then from that place, we can actually walk our prophecy with groundedness, with wisdom, with power. And so, I say that it's this direct ramp. Of course, nobody needs me, but this is just what God put me here for, I guess. Um, and so, from walking this path, I've just come to this place where God is telling me to say these things aloud. Okay. That being said, once we come home to the eternal frequency, the eternal realm, we come into right relationship. That is the next part, is finding that right relationship. And this is essentially realizing that the only thing that is exalted, that is like above this creation, is God, right? Because sometimes in the spiritual community, like with plant medicine, for example, people start worshiping the plant medicine. People start worshiping these ascended masters, and no ascended master wants you to worship them, right? You can have healthy respect for them, because an ascended master is just somebody that got really good at remembering themselves. Just like we wouldn't worship someone with a PhD on quantum physics just because they became really good at quantum physics, but we can respect them, right? We can say, wow, you work really hard, and I have appreciation for that. You work really hard, so I'm going to have a healthy respect for you, right? I look up to you, but I'm not going to put you on a pedestal, because the only being that's on the pedestal is God, is the eternal. And this is so important because we have been programmed and trained to worship almost everything except God, except God. And so now, the true essence, the true code of worship is really an experience, right? It's not about worshiping something outside of yourself, like, oh my God, you're so amazing. It's actually what we call the reverence and revelation cycle. Reverence is the state, like when you tune in to this creation, right? Even if it's, right now, maybe connecting to God is a little bit unclear, you can you can look at nature and say, wow, this creation is so beautiful, it's so pristine. I have such a reverence for that. When you tune into stones and water long enough, you start to see that life is very sacred. This is the Gnostic way of Christianity, where they used to study the reality. They would study the body, study nature to understand the nature of the creator, right? That's something that has long been forgotten, but this is why the ancient monastic temples were always built in power locations on the earth, is because they could really receive and come into contact with the high sanctity holiness of life itself, which of course is born of God. And so through studying the sanctity of nature, they could understand the nature of the creator, right? And so when we have reverence, reverence is about opening up our mind's aperture to really receive the holiness of something. It's a practice in and of itself. And if we don't feel God yet, reverence is almost this shortcut, fast path to coming into communion, because you search for the things that inspire awe, inspire a sense of holiness, inspire a sense of love for life itself, love for the organic creation, love for things that are holy and true. When you feel that, that is the organic architecture of ascension initiating inside of your body. See, it's not like, okay, I understand the 13th dimension and now I'm going to breathe into my fifth meridian down my back and activate this, and now I'm ascending. Right now my energy's flowing. It can be so much simpler than that. And it's because our body, it's kind of like you're walking. You don't think, okay, now I'm going to move my left ankle and I'm going to push up and I'm going to move my right leg and my left arm, right? You're not thinking about everything. You're just running. It's the same thing with ascension and activating our light body because it's organic. It's designed to do that, just like running. And so when we feel reverence, okay, and this is why um the mind viruses are also such a great weapon when they want you to feel judgment for others, when they want you to feel paranoia and suspicion, and when you look down upon others, right? When you want to see others like through a lens of criticism, when you only want to see what's wrong with the world and with other people, the person that is suffering is absolutely you, because what is being stolen from you is the experience of Christ. Because when we find things that we're inspired by, when we find the way that we can look at others and just see the holiness in them, where it moves us into reverence, the reverence and revelation cycle is the more that we're in reverence, we're like, wow, this is so holy. And I'm feeling inspired. When human bodies come into contact with something holy, we cry. And from that place, actually, that opens us up to be able to have revelation, which is when God is being revealed to us, right? So when God reveals itself, when holiness, when the sanctity of what is unfolding here, the sanctity of each and every one of your souls, every one of your prophecies, your missions from God, right? That is all so sacred. And the more that you can see that, the more that you come into reverence with it, the more of that is revealed to you, and the more that you want to be in reverence to it because you just saw more of it, and the more in awe you are, and the more is revealed to you, and you're in this positive spiral of expanding in this um, energy or this experience of being in communion with sanctity, Holy Spirit, something that is divine and sacred, whatever word you want to use, right? And I think that then we understand that this is about the rehabilitation, what we call bioregenesis of our body, of our mind, of our DNA, of our light body, so we can actually be a host for true, organic, living, eternal creation consciousness. And that is what Jesus did. That is what all of the masters that walked before us did. And at the end of the day, it's not about what we think we know or the mathematics, but it really is a living experience so that God can live inside of our body. And this is the only way that we're going to be able to accomplish our mission, because we are here to show humanity the way home by coming home inside of ourselves first. Um, so I think that actually wraps up this presentation. I'm very, very, very excited for having this opportunity to share all of that with you guys. Let me know how that feels. I can now kind of scroll through for any questions. It is very, very powerful when we come together to do this. This is why the Earthstar Academy community is so incredible. I always like to say that, it is just an initiative for us to truly have community where everyone is on this path, going all the way, right? Where we're the topics of our shared obsession is self-healing and the incarnation of our eternal spirit into our body. And that's what we're all working on. And I'm very, very honored that I've been guided to create this curriculum. It's my life work. because I do see that eventually one day I will be releasing it for free so that all of humanity can completely rehabilitate their bodies and their light bodies. But at this time, I'm unable to do that, but that's definitely part of the roadmap. But if you guys feel inspired to be guided in that process, which of course you don't need, you don't need me to guide you at all. You have that inside of yourself. But if you would like to, if you like to be part of my community, we are doing this 4-day Gridwork mission, Christo Starseed Activation, February 21st to the 24th during the Cygnus Gateway. These experiences are absolutely incredible because we have like 300, 400, sometimes 500 people in this group field. And all we do is come into this communion with the eternal realms. We do this through our oracle singing. It is an experience, right? That's what I like. I don't like, talking about all this stuff too much. Once we're in that space, though, we build this harmonic group field and we receive guidance from God to heal and rehabilitate and pray on behalf of the collective. So this particular mission at the end of the month during the Cygnus Gateway, we are going to be working on the reincarnation traps, particularly around aligning to Cygnus and the true history of Cygnus. And working on the passages of the afterlife, understanding why so many ancient cultures built mounds and had mysteries around resurrection and the death portal. This is something that, again, I've been initiated into with Kara through her birth and death and rebirth into this world. She's been teaching me how to journey through those realms of the organic stargates. She's been helping me and showing me how to rehabilitate these dimensional passages. And so that's what we're going to be working on and how we're learning. Jess says, are there any updates on the land under your stewardship? So yeah, I mean, we're still in the process of doing that. We have a land payment this month, which is part of the reason why I'm really inspired to share more about this class. It's going to be a while, we still owe like $400,000 or something. We were able to bring together nearly $500,000, over $500,000 over the last year and a half to secure this land. And I'm honestly really proud of myself because I went through so much last year. Like the attacks were insane. And looking back is like everything that God asked me to do, I actually did. I would say very successfully. And it just showed me how protected, how much God cocooned me. And even though there was like so much chaos flying around, we did it. And I hope that is inspiring to you guys to watch, because that's why God put me in front of a camera and pounded me. Just absolutely beat me to a pulp so that you can all see that happening. But anyway, the link is in the description to join us for the Cygnus Gateway. It includes packages to have access to the Airstar Academy as well. And we do a lot of workshops and things inside of ESA all the time. The curriculum is amazing. People have life-changing experiences with the curriculum. I can't take credit for that. I'm working on this project with God, with the Guardians, with my support teams. And so I'm going to scroll back and see. There's some questions in here. Yeah, so Elena Denon uses the term source consciousness and that human souls or fractals are parts of the source. So how I want you guys to discern is, again, the person's lived experience, right? What Leah calls the God code. Like, does somebody just love God? You can feel it from them, like truly, truly. Or are they just like saying words, but you don't feel like, I'm like an absolute God nerd, Like, I don't know how anybody can do spiritual work. Like one time I went to this retreat and we were activating Stargates or whatever. And like nobody said the word God one time. I couldn't feel this love. It was like we were more on this ego trip of getting to put our hands on God's architecture. It's like, no, we don't put our hands on God's architecture without like being in such deep holy reverence. And so this is why words are one thing, but really learning to discern and experience that frequency um, of true love, seeing the God code ignited, active in someone, knowing that what God wants for that person is of higher priority to that person than their own personal agendas, than them wanting to be famous, them wanting to be rich, or whatever it is. So I hope that helps with the discernment piece. And it's really hard to discern without having a very, very visceral experience of that Christed experience, feeling the presence of that eternal grace and peace in our heart. And so I think that's then what we have to focus on, is to really allow ourselves the space to have that experience, because it's not hard. We've just been programmed to think we have to look for it outside of us. There are many free oracle ceremonies on my page in which the songs that I'm singing, I had this dream when I was in Mount Shasta in which I was brought up to these angels, and they told me that I was given this gift to sing because the songs come from God and they are here to bring us home, to remind people of what home feels like. And that's kind of the experience that a lot of people have, is just this frequency of peace and grace. And so if you do have a hard time, connecting with that, I would pray, really have an earnest heart, because anyone that asks earnestly with true, pure intention, God shows up 100% of the time, 100% of the time. You just have to create space for that and know that that is actually what you've been looking for this whole time. It wasn't the DNA activations. It wasn't talking to your star family. It was just coming home to God, because everything else unfolds from that place. So thank you for that. I hope you've enjoyed this ramble. Let's see. Can you explain more on God not being in everything? I've been trying to deepen this understanding, but I've noticed a bit of clash between seeing God in everything, but God being holy. So again, this is where, the reason why Luciferianism is really powerful is because our mind is so hackable, right? The mind has no capacity to connect to what we call gnosis, which is knowing of the soul. So this is why there is such a high drive to sever the mind from the heart and the body, for people to live in their heads, for people to live in survival mode. They want people to be in their head. And this is the only way that they can fill their heads with things that are logical, but do not align with gnosis, do not align with knowledge, understanding, wisdom of the body, wisdom of the organic intelligence. So your mind is asking this question, well, shouldn't everything be God? Wouldn't everything be God? Doesn't that mean that, right? And this is how Luciferianism gets in, because it makes sense. It's logical. We can logic our way into a bunch of stuff. But when you connect your mind to your heart, to your body, and again, a friend of mine was giving me this example of how somebody was trying to convince her that pedophilia should be allowed because everything is God and we shouldn't care about it. And this is the level of that false light at an extreme view, right? Because your body knows that it is wrong, and you have compassion and empathy for the trauma that it incurs. And God loves the innocent. God, okay, so what I want to say in conclusion to that is that when you actually stop asking the question with your mind and stop trying to understand God from your mental body, but actually come back into the receptive, which this is what I train you in the Airstar Academy curriculum, in the meditation course, in the foundations level, is coming into the receptive mind. So you learn to actually bring the mind back into communion with the heart and the technology of God, which is the body. And from there, you can come into direct communion with God and experience the true qualities of God. And from there, you will understand beyond being able to explain it. with the mind. So I hope that helps. Jenny says, is an example of this Christians worshiping Jesus more than God? I think they worship Jesus because they believe that he is God. Like, that's the argument, right? They say that Jesus is God. And so you can parcel through, because there's a lot of, it's a case by case. Like, we can't generalize, right? We can't say that everyone that worships Jesus is, not following the true Christ, and everyone, like, it's just, there's so many nuances and so many layers and levels. Like, somebody that connects to God, one person that connects to God will have a completely different experience than the next person that does. So again, it's just so nuanced, but the only way is to identify where we are and focus on that. And then we'll be able to kind of reflect and see through our personal lens. So yeah, I love to share these oracle ceremonies and these weekend experiences, because what we're able to accomplish together is just absolutely unbelievable. And it really, even the Bible says when two or more gather, miracles happen. And the reason for that is because we become this collective vehicle, and every one person that is adding to the field is exponential, the amount of energy that we can anchor together. We're like pillars of a temple. And what we're able to do is pray, not only just pray, but use the fullness of our body's light technology, use the fullness of what God has created in our light body to anchor these higher realities for the world. And I really think that this is where it's at. This is the work that I want to focus on. People want to criticize like my ideas about politics, but I don't even think about politics most of the time. My message is that we are here to anchor the organic timeline, and here's the way to do it, right? And what I don't watch TV, I don't watch the news. It's very evident when people still do. If we're just tuning in to these realities and grounding in our love, grounding in our coherence, that is the most powerful work that we can be doing. And that's really what we need to do, and to believe in the power of that. So I just want to invite you guys to come have this experience, because, I've got hundreds of testimonials on that page, literally just of people having a very profound experience, not because of me whatsoever, but because of, what can be experienced when groups of people come together to pray with very, very, very pure intent and allow God to move through us in a way that is so intentional in that way. So Isaiah, many other places like talks about unleavened bread. Not sure. I might have missed a message. Janie says, I've been to the tunnel of afterlife, but I didn't go through it. God sent me there and then allowed me to go back to my body. That is when I learned to stop glorifying plant medicine. Question, can you speak of the God in the Old Testament if the one true God was in the Old Testament or a false one? I can't tell you because I haven't read it. I'm in the process of reading because I just think it's important for me to study. But when the majority of the God wound, the God trauma that people have is with this male, patriarchal, judgmental, wrathful God. And I do have, certain theories about the Garden of Eden having been a genetic lab, and the giants, from the sky and whatnot. So that all feels, I'm aware of all of that. And what I really, want to anchor, because when we commune and connect and exit the frequency fences, we open up this pillar, right? And we're actually poking holes through these collective soul prisons that allow more of this eternal consciousness to flood into the earth. And when that happens, the collective, this shifts collective realities. And we have to understand how powerfully the angelic star seeds do that, right? This is why I say, don't look at what's going on out there. Focus on your internal experience, focusing on your direct experience and activating your body, because the angelic starseeds have such an incredible ability to shift the reality. I think in the last transmission, we talked about neurosynergy, which is like the scientific evidence that human consciousness does indeed affect the fabric of time and space. Robert says, do you think we are always oscillating in and out of all these dimensions, or do you believe we eventually come to a stable frequency at some point? I mean, yeah, this is about embodiment, and that is just a process. I think that it doesn't even matter. Like, we don't even have to think about it that much, besides just having an earnest routine, right? Working on it, not really feeling like we have to chase that destination, but really just being earnest and honest with ourselves, with where we are, and continuously working on ourselves until eventually we've healed so many of these things. We've integrated so much of that eternal presence that we are just there. And I'm not there yet. It's a process, but it is something that I am working towards. Linda says, it's a deep love and intimacy with God that I need to learn to open to so much toxicity from religion and patriarchal distortions. That is the soul prison at work, right? That is exactly the reason why it's there, is to block humans from having that deep love and intimacy with the true God. And so I'm so happy that you received that message, and I'm so excited for you. Rochelle says, wow, as a starseed and so connected to the dragons, I really feel that I need to connect more with God. I'm in the astral so often and connecting with star beings, forgetting my connection with God. And this is so important, right? Because now you're going to be able to discern which beings to connect to and which beings are wasting your time, let's say. And I'm also so connected, of course, to the Andromedans, the Aurora, to dragons, to the ancient dragon beings. And so it's been really essential for me. I think I was honestly kind of born this way because I remember when I was first waking up, like I was being bombarded with so many beings. And basically, my standard was that unless I felt into that being and started weeping at the holiness that was inside of them, I'm more or less not interested, because I didn't really need to have those experiences. And a lot of the true ancient or original dragons, they are so, yeah, like true guardians. People, okay. I am new here. How do you define God? So I would go back and rewatch this video or watch some of my other videos, because for me, God is the eternal, omniversal source, which is the eternal union of Mother and Father God. So it's a space where it's unmanifest. It is, again, this eternal peace, eternal love from which all physicality comes and is created. And it is just this force, like it's an experience. Like, how can you describe it, right? It's a force of just the most exquisite, expansive, eternal feeling peace and benevolence and love and wisdom. It is when they say, God created humans in God's image. I really believe that, God has placed these qualities, these holy qualities, these Christed qualities, kindness, benevolence, generosity, forgiveness, right? All of these ways that activate the structure of the heart and change our body, change the way that we treat others and move through this life. And I think that that wisdom comes from and tells us about the nature of our God. How do you know if you're a starseed? For me, you're a starseed when you have this pure love in your heart. Like for me, I specifically, my work, it's geared towards angelic starseeds. I'm not sure if there's other kinds of starseeds. I've met some pretty dark starseeds, and so that's why I like to distinguish. I'll say My work is primarily geared for angelic starseeds who are born with this pure original innocence inside of our heart that remembers the blueprint of human beings, that remembers the original blueprint of consciousness. And we're here to seed this consciousness and to um, allow it to repair and rehabilitate human body back to its original blueprint, to be a house for that innocence, which is a spark of God. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's that's who my work is for. Alicia says, what is the ratio of time that you spend focusing daily to keep anchored your connection to God? Okay, so this has shifted for me over the years because when I first woke up and was going through like the most intense parts of my training, like I just jumped all in. Like when I realized that I have a mission and that, my heart was being called by God to help humanity remember, like it just was so profound and sacred to me that I didn't want to do anything else. Like I didn't need, I just jumped all in and I started just answering and following guidance. At this point, I was probably working on healing my body and my consciousness like 4 hours a day. I would meditate, something like the Aurora Pasana. At that time, I didn't even have the Aurora Pasana, so I was doing regular Vipassana. But, I think my starseed DNA was definitely still accelerating that process. But there is a free technique on my YouTube channel called the Aurora Pasana that's very, very powerful. I was doing that basically the first moment that I woke up in the morning because I knew that the rehabilitation of my human self was the beginning. Like nothing else was going to happen until I healed myself. And so I spent about 4 years, um, maybe closer to 6 years, just healing myself, healing my body, going through detoxes, and I was homeless for a large majority of that time and um, going through trainings. And then eventually, I learned that I had to get a job, which is something that starseeds go through. And at that point, even when I was at my work, I'm chopping carrots, cooking in the kitchen. I was cooking for maybe about 20 people, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at this kind of a natural addictions recovery place. I was just in the kitchen cooking. And even while I was cooking, I was still just enforcing my connection. You know, it really became something full on. And it's a process of deep listening and trusting yourself and just being almost overboard, almost addicted, almost obsessed, pretty obsessed. Like you can't, you're not going to become a master without being obsessed with what you're doing. And if you are somebody that is feeling a call, like you think you're a star seed or a light worker or an angel on earth, like that's pretty dope. Like imagine God has like a job for you. Like you have a part in all of this. Like God trusted you and God saw your soul and believed in you for you to be having these thoughts that you're here to support, like a planetary ascension. Like that is so amazing. And when we really recognize and move through that unworthiness and realize like how profound and sacred that is, we just take it on and do whatever it takes. And so at this point, I've gone through so much of just doing crazy things, like God telling me that I needed to go give birth to my son in Ireland. I'm gonna make a video and tell you guys the birth story of my son because that was really amazing. Um, but yeah, um, at this point, I have 2 kids, and so I really just pray, whenever I can. At this point, I'm putting them down to bed. I am meditating when they're taking naps. Like, what else is there to do, really? I live in a place that's very conducive for that. I am, everything that I do in life is more or less, you know, in this frequency. And so Starseed, it is Starseed boot camp here. It is. It absolutely is. As I say, it's extreme sports for angels on Earth. Um, So, but yeah, last year was insane for me, having a newborn, gave birth in Ireland, facilitated a Gridwork mission for 150 people overseas, 6 weeks postpartum. I spent most of the event with a baby strapped to my chest, and then, needing to come up with the money to secure the land because I believe that, some of you guys are going to be coming here and experiencing crazy things. We need a place and we need an actual sanctuary, a dojo where we can just meditate for 30 days. It's like the 10-day meditation. At the end of our 10-day avatar meditation retreat, we're like, we need more. It's just not enough time. It takes time to rehabilitate, our DNA and to activate into some of these crazier spaces. But yeah, I think that willingness is really important. Like, God isn't going to give you more interesting or more cooler tasks if God told you to do something and you've been not doing it because for whatever reason. So I think listening is really, really important. But yeah, if you are wanting to join our community and wanting the support, the curriculum is there for you. I have hundreds of testimonials from people who are just radically accelerating their process. And that's all it is. It is an acceleration, right? Took me 10 years to gain all of this experience. I have placed them into a walkable path so that, you can just really receive that support. And I wish I had had that support and that community to do it with. But yeah, also coming together for Gridwork missions is so just powerful. I want you to experience it because it's really nothing. I have some testimonials that I collected from people that have experienced them, but like it's like, you can't describe some of these things. Like the other day, last weekend, we had this ceremony where we brought through the frequency of original innocence. And then we all connected with the Pangea grid, which is like the original innocence consciousness energy of the earth. And then I had everybody bring that attention energy back into our body. And we just like sat together and looked at each other through the eyes of God, through the eyes of innocence. And that was like, people were crying. It was such a profound experience because we're so seated with separation and conflict and competition and suspicion. We don't even notice that what our body just deeply longs for is to be in a space where we feel safe with everyone there, where we can actually experience true unity grounded in God, founded in true Christ. It's a profound experience, and the peace that is felt in that space. I'm just so honored and grateful that I get to experience it, um, and get to share that with people and that we get to share it together with humanity. It's just a dream come true. No, we left Ireland in August, and we are going to be going back to Europe this year. Though we're doing an event in probably this event's going to probably most likely be for women only in Portugal in July, and then we have another event in Scotland in September. That's going to be for everyone. And I'm still working on piecing that together because it's always a Gridwork mission when I'm involved. And so there's just all of this intel and information that I still need to pull together and translate. But I'm very, very, very excited for everything that we have coming this year and just to continue with all of the work that we have. Hi, Z. Can you please say hi to my husband who also is watching you today? Hi, Steve. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out and tuning in. Please drop me a comment and a like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel if this video resonated with you. And you can also check out the links in the description to join these. If you want to spend entire 4 days with me, I promise you will not regret it. Every single dollar that you will be exchanging are going directly into this avatar monastery that I'm building. It's not a retreat center is not for chilling, it's for deep work, which is so exciting, right? Like, don't we just need a place where we're just meditating so hard inside of a Stargate? Like, that's all we need to be doing. I'm so excited for that. So yeah, having a Vipassana style, I do want it to be donation based, but obviously we're going to have a way to make sure that only the people that are meant to be there are going to be there. And people will be serving you food and you will just be going ham in the meditation maloka. So that's the plan. But I thank you guys for your contribution and for your belief in the shared mission. And we are really just here to do it together. We're all here to work on this together. And I'm so honored and grateful to share space with every one of your immaculate souls. And yeah, I can't wait to see you guys soon. So bye for now.